Girl, what's your shirt say?
It says feminism is
cancer. That's what it says. Feminism is cancer.
Unfortunately, this person was never seen again. He will be truly missed.
2 to the 1, from the 1 to the 3. I like good pussy and I like good trees. Smoke so much weed you wouldn't believe. And I get more ass than a toilet seat.
But yet you still say we're at a war with Islam?
Are we not at a war?
That is the most ignorant, stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Are we not at a war with radical jihadism?
Okay, but are they not at a war with radical Christianity, okay?
Oh my God.
Where are we at war with radical Christianity?
Really?
No, really, I don't know.
Are you kidding me?
No, actually explain to me.
Just...
Where are we at war with radical Christians?
Yeah, they're trying to target us for no reason.
Where are the radical Christianity war? Where is that happening?
The people in power. The people in power want to make us turn on each other. That's exactly why you're trying to do this.
These are radical Christians?
Get feelings from
I
people.
just want to know about this radical Christian war that's going on. I haven't heard of it.
Ask other countries. That's all I gotta say.
Wow.
Assalamu alaikum. Okay. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, I actually lived in the Middle East for 2 years as a child.
Well, fuck.
That's really good. Now, if you could reply with the proper, like assalamu alaikum.
You see, I had a... Yeah,
Alaikum
no.
assalam.
Yeah, not a fan. See,
Have a good day.
Growing up there as a young girl, I wasn't a big fan of having to cover myself all the time. The actual rape culture that goes on in the Middle East, and throwing gays off of buildings and such. I wasn't a big fan of that. Being an American over there.
Neither am I, but you don't think Donald Trump is after the same policies?
I don't think he wants to throw gays off of buildings. No.
No, but he's openly against them in radical form.
Open against what?
Gay people, Islamic people, black people, Mexican people. He's all about the hate.
What did he do to gay people?
He's openly slandered a bunch of...
what did he say? I don't know. I would like to know about this. I haven't heard this.
You haven't heard anything about him?
I haven't heard him say bad things about gays, no.
Okay. Well, look at stuff from the 1990s.
I don't know if you can even really compare saying a few things to really throwing them off of buildings either.
You're right. You're right. Sticks and stones will not break bones, but words do hurt.
The social justice warrior motto.
Yeah, I think I'd rather hear a few nasty words than be thrown off the building.
Me too. And that's where we're all the same on a human level.
Don't think it's quite a valid comparison is my point.
Okay. Well, that's different. Have a good day.
I think, and I mean this in the nicest and most complimentary way possible, you're probably atypical in most respects as a sort of workaholic of either gender. You're probably not typical of women. You're probably not typical of anyone in the kind of work that you do. What I'm talking about is not, bashing women for not putting in the hours. What I'm saying is, in general, women look for different things from life. So they look to fulfill themselves to flourish in slightly different ways. And of course, if you take if you look at the end statistics about pay, they're going to reflect that. That's not necessarily a problem. Now, when people lose the economic argument, they always switch to the social argument, as your other guest just did. And unfortunately, the problem is that a lot of this is underpinned by this sort of constant victimhood complex that women are encouraged to buy into. They're given this victimhood script about, whether it's rape culture on campus or pay under the male average. And most of it's based on ridiculous sort of social science studies that don't stand up to the most basic scrutiny. Most of it simply isn't true. And I think the majority of women don't want to be patronised, don't want to be given special privileges, don't want to be given special dispensation. They want to go out to the workplace, be paid what they're worth, and of course, if they want to raise a family, they're not going to get to be CEO, or not going to get to, raise to be a partner in a law firm. You can't have it all. You can't do all of these things. And what really sort of frustrates me, and I think frustrates a lot of ordinary women who, find these sorts of debates a bit dull and a bit mystifying, is that there's some sort of somehow implication always behind the scenes that that motherhood is a bad thing, and that it's a bad thing for a woman to aspire to raise a family and to be a mother. Actually, it's sort of one of the most extraordinary things that anybody can accomplish and anybody can do. But there's this sort of assumption that, well, if you do that, then we've got to make sort of special dispensation when you go back to work and pay you more and give you all these benefits and whatever, rather than celebrating the unique things that women can do in society that men can't.
You started off that answer, Nikki, by trying to compliment me and take the wind out of my sails. You have a go.
Absolutely. I've got no time for that argument whatsoever. Women want to do many varied and amazing things with their lives. Motherhood might be part of that. But, again, if that's such a wonderful thing to do, why are men not bending over backwards to take time off to raise their children? They're not, because the culture is not set up to encourage men to share the load of care. Women, even when they're married and working, do more domestic chores than men do. We've seen these surveys time and time again, and I think it's really insulting to say that women, might not be as inclined to work as hard or want different things from life. There are plenty of women who are hugely ambitious. Just look at the number of graduates that we have now. Women are outstripping men. They're getting better degrees. What we haven't seen yet is culture change to accommodate and to reflect that. And I think the other thing is that it tends to be older women often that are also in part-time work positions, but we shouldn't just leave them to flounder. They're often picking up care bills for elderly parents as well as looking after children and the rest of their families. So, I just think Milo's argument is ridiculous that women, shouldn't be paid as much because they want other things from life.
OK, Milo, we've been given more time, so you're going to have to work even harder. It's more than 40 years since the Equal Pay Act, and yet still it is a fact that women do not earn as much as men.
No, I'm sorry, it's not a fact. You can only say that if you take broad brush averages across all industries and all genders, and you can say the amount of money going to women is a bit less.
Well,
it's not. I mean, for one thing, it's illegal to pay a woman less than a man for the same work.
Interrupt him, Nikki. Go on.
No,
it's illegal to pay a woman.
If that's the case, then when these results are published, they won't reveal anything. They won't reveal any difference, but they're going to. That's the point. The whole reason David Cameron is encouraging it.
I want them to be published because what they're going to show is that at all stages, all else being equal, the genders are paid the same. Or even what they might show, you're saying the culture hasn't changed. I think your argument's 20 years out of date. The culture has changed, which is precisely why there are more women going to university, more women graduate from university, they're getting higher grades, they're 2-to-1 favoured when they go for job applications, particularly in science and technology, and they're paid more, depending on whose figures you believe, up to the age of 30, 35 or 39, it's probably about 35, women are paid more than men. So whatever gender pay gap you're talking about has already been fixed.
But it hasn't.
So the good news for you is that there isn't a problem anymore, although there used to be, and that if we do release these figures, which I'm very excited about, they're going to prove me right. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
But that's not true. I mean, the point is the gap is there still, and older women in particular suffer more from it from younger women. We shouldn't just leave older women, to flounder, should we? Just because they were part of a generation where it was even more difficult for them to get on.
I'm making a specific explanation about where these figures come from, and you haven't really addressed the point that I'm making. What I'm saying is that you can only create this gender gap when you take a broad brush across all genders, all sectors, all work. That doesn't reflect the different choices people make, and employers shouldn't be forced to pay a full-time salary to somebody who works part-time. You haven't come up with a solution to that, and you haven't addressed the problem with the figures, which is that no serious economist treats the gender pay gap as a problem to be solved. No economist thinks this is a problem because they realise what I'm explaining.
Is that male economist or female economist, just to be clear?
Well, I mean, where I get most of my figures on this from is from a feminist female academic, Christina Hoff Sommers at the American Enterprise Institute in the US, who looks at the figures from the UK and the US, and she does a broad survey of all economists, I'm sure of all genders, but my source for this sort of stuff is generally Christina Hoff Sommers. So she is a female feminist academic who is mystified that this is this sort of feminist myth that won't die.
Yes, there is a problem within the black community, and yes, we need more policing inside our neighborhoods rather than less, because if there are more police officers, there aren't going to be as many shootings, as many open-air drug markets, kidnappings, which is high.
Black people who were shot by the police, there are many?
There are. I mean, I think it's like 153, about 153 to 200 that died last year. And it's tragic. It's a tragedy whenever a police officer shoots somebody or when anybody dies. But to blow it out of proportion, to say that black people are being shot every single day is a lie. I think 965 black people died last year, and of that, I think 40% of them were white, and the other 30% were Latinos, and then others, what have you. So black people, I think as a percentage, it was like 17%, and they're 13% of the population, which means on average, I mean, when you actually scale it down, they're pretty much represented fairly. And by the way, there's only 1 million police officers in America. 1 million police officers that are policing 320, 340 million Americans, right? So when 900 of the people die, justly or unjustly, you're not even talking about 1/10 of 1%. That is like a 99% satisfaction rate, and when it comes down to policing.
So there's no discrimination in the United States.
I didn't say that. I mean, of course there's discrimination. There's discrimination. Are you married? I mean, when you pick your husband, you're going to discriminate against a lot of men. I mean, there's discrimination of all sorts. I'm not saying that there's no discrimination. I'm not saying that there's no racism. I don't think that the police officers are systematically racist. And I don't think it's a problem, to be honest with you, in America.
So you said there is racism and discrimination. What would Donald Trump do about it?
I don't think Donald Trump can really do anything about discrimination or racism because it's a single thing, right? So I mean, if I wanted to be outwardly racist to somebody because I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, how is Donald Trump going to stop me? Is he going to put in a law that's going to throw me in prison? Well, then there's going to be a lot of free speech violations and what have you. Donald Trump, no president can stop somebody from being racist. It's your own thoughts. That's called thought policing, and I don't think that we don't want that in America.